It's the Brad and John Show.
Brad and John Show. Today's date, June 25th. This is the C block, the Charlie block, which means we start right around 7:45. John, are you ready? Are you ready for this?
I'm ready, Brad.
Okay, so what do you think is going to happen in this call? You think it's going to be an interesting call?
I think it's going to be completely meandering. You'll have no point. You'll have nothing you want to get to. You'll forget to ask Bill at the end how people can find out more about his campaign. You'll forget all that stuff. It'll be a colossal waste of time. And the next time you call Bill, he won't want to answer.
Okay. Thanks, John. Appreciate that. Here we go with the call anyway. Two ringy-dingies to Bill Eigel. Watch him not pick up now. He told me he'd be there. I told him 7:45. It's 7:44. I'm only a minute early.
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail. The person you're trying to reach is not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up.
Bill, you must have been listening off air because that's why you didn't answer my call. Brad, this is Brad on Westplex Talk. You can call me back 314-280-8880. 314-280-8880. Okay? John, you were wrong. It didn't go anywhere like you said it did.
Well, he'll call you right back. If you said 7:45, he's probably driving or getting set up in his office or something like that.
You think? You think?
Yeah, I think so.
Hold on a minute now. I got my GPS tracker I secretly stuck onto his belt loop in the back of his pants when I was close to him the other day.
Oh, Brad, that's a little stalky.
He's on hole 11 of Old Hickory. I can see where he's at right now. He's approaching. Hold it, my phone just dinged. Was that him texting me? Talking point time? No. No. Who said that? Hold on a minute. What's going on here? I'm trying to see if.
This is what we call boomer screen time, where Brad reads his text messages and tries to follow along.
Bill Eigel's probably listening to Westplex 107.1. Maybe that's the case. You know what? Let's give him another quick try, okay? And then we'll just move on, John. We'll just say because I got.
That sounds great, Brad.
Well, listen,
he'll answer it. And remind him that I can't talk to him because of your setup here.
You're always so nice to me, John. I do appreciate that. Okay, one more time for Bill Eigel. It's Eigel. It's officially 7:45 now, so we'll see if it picks up now. It's interesting. Did you hear the story that Mike Kehoe talked about yesterday? You were listening to 97.1.
Your call has been forwarded to.
He was in church, and his phone rang. Did you hear this story?
No, I didn't hear this.
He was in church and his phone rang, probably vibrated, and he looked at the phone and he said to his wife, I know you're not going to be happy, but I have to take this phone call. And he walked outside. Because you know who it was?
It was probably the Pope. Maybe the Pope may be in Rome.
Donald Trump.
Oh, wow.
Yes. You know you're important when you get a phone call from Donald Trump. So I thought that was an interesting story.
Hey, you know what we haven't talked about considering Donald Trump in a while, Brad? We haven't talked about our friend Will Scharf and the fact that Will is still front and center at every major Trump event.
Now, what does actually he do? What is his job? I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and I remember, Brad, I was thinking about this morning, and I remember in December when Will got this job because secretary was in his title. And I remember in December, I don't have the timestamp in front of me, but you said that you were surprised that Will would take that job because you said it was beneath him. And I explained, as I often spend a lot of time on this show, explaining to an amateur why just having secretary in your title isn't a demeaning thing. And so, yeah, I think Will is one of the last people that Trump talks to before Trump makes a decision. I don't want to overstate what Will does, but he controls, I think, he partially controls the flow of information as much as you can control Donald Trump. He controls the flow of information in terms of what Trump sees, who he talks to, and, just a tremendous amount of influence with the president.
So, but yet they say that Trump does not necessarily listen to most of his advisors. He just does whatever he wants. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, I'm not a spokesman for either Will Scharf or Donald Trump. I would say that, yeah, I think it's probably hard to control a president, whether it's Bill Clinton or whether it's Barack Obama or George Bush. And as we've talked about before, Brad, I hate to be one of those old guys that just repeats the same 20 stories over and over every day. But I think it's been a few months since I mentioned the criticism of Bill Clinton was that Clinton often agreed with the last person he spoke to. And at Clinton's intellectual level, that shows that the last person who speaks to a president or the last person who controls the information the president's getting can often have a outsized sway of influence, I guess. So, yeah, I guess the point is, Brad, I remember when you demeaned Will Scharf in December for taking this job. And as it turns out, it was a pretty good gig.
John, I got a text here from Bill Eigel. Sorry, my phone didn't ring. Call me. I'm ready. Should we call him?
Yeah, why not?
Third time. Let's see. Hold. I think he's calling me. Is that you, Bill Eigel?
That is me. That is me. Good morning, man.
I called you twice. Very few times I give people a third time, okay? First off, I have to ask you a question that I know you're not going to be prepared for. I mean, not that you were not prepared for, but it's going to be out of the blue, and I have a question because I think you know the answer to this.
Okay. All right, hit me.
You were in the Air Force, correct?
That is correct.
And what was one of the bases you were at? What country were you in?
I was assigned to white men, but I was also assigned overseas to a country, to the country Turkmenistan, which is just north of Iran. It actually shares a border with Iran in its capital city.
Now, John, or rather, and by the way, John Combest is here, but you can't talk back and forth with him. Bill, wasn't one of your jobs with working with the refueling tankers? Wasn't that what you did?
We were catching. Actually, it was C-17s coming back from Afghanistan that were stopping in Turkmenistan before they headed on to Europe. I never worked on a refueler, but I did work on the B-2 for several years. But no, I never actually worked on refuelers. When my dad was in the Air Force, he actually flew KC-135. So he was a pilot on the tankers. But that was a long, long time ago.
Really? Now, what did you do on the B-2s?
Oh, I was an aircraft maintenance officer on the B-2s. In fact, both my wife Amanda and I were maintenance officers on the B-2. And a fun fact about Amanda and I is that at one point or another, every single B-2 stealth bomber in the American inventory was managed for maintenance by either Amanda or myself.
No kidding? Really?
Yes, that is true. So all what I think it was 6 of the airframes or 6 of the B-2s were used in the strike over the weekend. All 6 of those at one point were managed for maintenance by either Amanda or myself.
Wow. Now, okay, so you're the guy who would know. Do they have Johns in there? Do they have toilets in there?
They do. Yes, they do. There's a small microwave. They can cook food. It's funny when the air crews come out for a 30-hour flight like that, they'll actually come out with lawn chairs that they can unfold once they're inside the cockpit area and stretch out on for those really long flights. So they'll bring coolers of food. They'll bring lawn chairs. It's kind of funny to see, but yeah, they're built for very long periods of time.
Do they have like bunks? Can they lay down like in like some of the like the 747s and the big jets that fly internationally? They have bunks in them?
No, there's not a bunk, but when you board the aircraft and then you close the ladder behind you, the ladder to enter the aircraft is like on the bottom of the aircraft and the forward side. There's kind of a space behind the 2 cockpit seats, which is where you can stretch out. You can unfold a big lawn chair. So that's why they'll bring a lawn chair that they can unfold in this kind of open space, and then they can stretch out and take naps or what have you on in this space in the back. But I don't know the exact numbers, but they actually, for a 30-hour flight, they'll get very little sleep. I want to say it was just a couple hours. I don't know the exact numbers, but it was very little sleep. But there was an area where they could stretch out.
Now, Bill, are those lawn chairs mil-spec or are they Wally World specials?
They're Wally World specials. That's what we would always joke about. There wasn't a military issue lawn chair that they would stretch. And maybe, again, this was 20 years ago, so maybe it's changed by now. But no, they would just bring a lawn chair you could buy down at Walmart or what have you and climb aboard the aircraft with it.
Now, Bill, all the interviews you do, has anybody asked you such in-depth questions like I ask you like this?
No, I have never talked about my B-2 knowledge like this before.
Okay, now, here's the reason I called you yesterday, okay? Bill, don't be mad at me, but I saw your tweet, your X, whatever, about the population not growing in the St. Louis metro area. You commented that was Post-Dispatch story. I think that was Monday was the story came out?
That's
okay.
right.
Can I tell you something?
Okay.
You are to blame.
I'm to blame for the population stagnation?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This escalated quickly.
Well, no. Do you know why?
Why am I responsible?
Because all the grenade throwing things you do, people going, "Oh, not moving that area. That's Bill Eigel's territory."
They're worried to come back. They're worried. Well, if that were true, then no one would come to America because we've got Donald Trump. You know, if that were true, that hey, we're afraid of a disruptor and we're afraid of a guy that is willing to really stand on principle like that and willing to do a little confrontation, no one would want to come to America because Donald Trump. But we know that's not true.
Okay, Bill. Last week. And once again, these are questions you're not going to get from anybody else but me. Last week, Arnold Schwarzenegger appeared on The View. Did you by any chance see that?
Oh, I did not. I don't make a habit of watching The View, so I did not see that.
Okay, I can give you the audio if you want. He gave a very impassioned plea about the fact that that immigrants should realize that they are guests here in our country. They should act like a guest. They should do whatever we tell them to do, and they should be thankful for the chance that they are here in America as a guest. Okay, that's one thing he said. The other thing he said was, and I'm going to throw this right at you, the problem with our political system is people like you who are partisans and not wanting to do things for the greater good. In other words, he's saying, and he didn't come out and say the Freedom Caucus, but he might as well. He said those people are the ones causing problems in our country. Bill, what do you say to that?
Well, listen, if standing on principle is a huge problem for anyone, I really don't know there isn't an answer to that question. I happen to think that part of the big problem that we're seeing in our country today, part of the problem that we have in our state, part of the problem that we have in all of our politics is that there is too much of a willingness to sacrifice our principles in order to, quote, get things done, regardless of what those things are. I mean, take a look at the most recent legislative session down here in Jefferson City. It's not that we didn't have any victories. I mean, we saw HJR 73, which was obviously is something I think is a good thing. But on the flip side of that, we were like a hockey team without a goalie. We let more fiscal disasters through the system. We have such a disaster in the finances of the state. I don't know if it's ever actually been worse. Our utility bills are going up because we passed a bill that's going to reward the big utility companies. We passed the billionaire bailout where we're going to reward the billionaire owners of the Chiefs and Royals instead of addressing property taxes and personal property taxes. Our state budget is completely out of whack. We're not even passing a state budget. We're more than $2 billion to the negative in how we're passing our finances. So at some point, you have to ask the question, is there anything that's worth making people uncomfortable for? And my answer to that is yes, there absolutely is, because the future that we're mortgaging is actually our kids and our grandchildren, and the country that we've grown up in is not going to be around if we don't be far more aggressive about taking a stand on these issues. I heard a really good saying once, and it was that the country that values its privileges more than its principles soon loses both. There are absolutely things that are worth fighting for.
Bill, one last question for you. I have campaigned on my radio station for over a year now that the solution to the sports stadium thing is, and I was the lone voice. I think I heard Mark Cox mention it one time. Why did not you and the mayor of St. Louis and Steve Ellman and all the other county executives in the collar counties say, hey, Kansas City Royals, we have a beautiful stadium in downtown St. Louis. We can work this out just like we did when the Cardinals and the Browns played in St. Louis, where when the Cardinals were on the road, the Royals would be at home, and we have a dome which the Kansas City Chiefs could play in. Why didn't you push that?
Well, I don't think that there was any conversation whatsoever that the Chiefs would just simply leave Kansas City for St. Louis just to change stadiums. In fact, everything the Kansas City Chiefs have said about where they're going to be in the future have been 100% dependent on them getting money for the taxpayers. And so that was, as far as I was concerned, that was the beginning and the end of any conversation, because the Kansas City Chiefs don't deserve 1 cent of taxpayer dollars that every other person of the 6 million people that live in this state aren't getting. The idea that they are putting out there, and that Mike Kehoe is putting out there, and that a lot of politicians in Jefferson City are putting out there, is that simply because of the fact that they are big, they are entitled to benefits under the law that everybody else doesn't get. I don't believe in that. Now, if the Chiefs wanted to come to a true sports town like St. Louis and make it a home, and they weren't asking to be bribed to come over here, I would be fully 2 feet into that conversation. But that's never been the perspective of any of the sports teams, quite frankly. So for that, I can't speak for the mayor of St. Louis. I can't speak for Steve Ellman, but I can tell you for myself, we shouldn't be bribing anybody to want to come to St. Charles or the St. Louis region. What we do need to be doing is creating an environment. I tell you what, you want the Chiefs to come to St. Charles County, get rid of property tax in our county, and you'll not only have the Chiefs and a bunch of other big companies looking here, but we will set a path of growth for a long, long time. I'm the only person that's running for county executive that's even talking like that. No more bribing these big companies. We're going to create an environment where they're going to come to us instead of us going to them.
Bill, hold on a minute. You're running for county executive?
I know. We finally got that in. It's okay.
Okay. Give your address for your website where people can find out more about Bill Eigel and his campaign for county executive.
BillEigel.com. It's the same website it's been for many years. We've got a lot of folks following the page. We're still very early in the process, so I think as we get to start moving through the summer, we're going to ramp up a lot more. But I've been very fortunate to have a great relationship with the folks, the good folks here in St. Charles County for almost a decade now. I'm very humbled and blessed by that. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with them again over the next 12 months about who's going to lead the county forward.
But you're not a member of the Westplex Chamber of Commerce. What's the deal there?
That's true. I am not a member of the Westplex Chamber of Commerce. However, I will have to take a look at that. When is their next meeting? Maybe I could be there.
It's right now, Bill. We're meeting right now.
Oh, okay. No. Well, now I can be a member. I love it.
Bill, all I can tell you is there's another guy who's running for office who is a member and very active, and he actually gets promotion and advertising on my radio stations because he's a member of the Westplex Chamber of Commerce. But is Bill Eigel? Okay. No, he's not. So, Bill, I know you really don't like me. You threw me out of your fundraiser years ago. I know how it rolls.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true. There's no one that I don't like.
Bill, sincerely, I always enjoy talking to you, and I mean this sincerely. Thank you to you and your wife for your service to our country.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was 20 years ago. I was a lot thinner back in those days, but I appreciate the sentiment.
Thanks for the information on the B-2. That was fascinating. Have a good one.
No problem.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. Have a great morning.
Bye-bye. Okay, John, you still there?
I am here. Yeah, way to go, Brad.
Oh, okay. Did I fall into all the faults you said I'd fall into?
Oh, I didn't say that there were any faults, Brad. Yesterday, for folks who want to hear, you can go to B Block on June 24th, and you can hear Brad criticize Bill Eigel for Bill standing up for pro-life legislation and why Brad thinks that's a bad idea. And then, Brad, you and I went back and forth in B Block yesterday because you and I just happened to disagree on that.
I see, once again, I think the whole Freedom Caucus thing is bologna sandwiches. I really do. I mean,
and that's amazing that didn't come up with Bill Eigel today.
Well, no, I brought that up to him. I said because of the fact that, but the whole thing with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the partisan thing.
Yeah, you weren't direct about it, but I get your point. You in a very roundabout way said that because Bill is a partisan Republican, that he's not working for a greater solution. I did like the Westplex Chamber of Commerce plug, though, Brad. It was very passive-aggressive about Mike Elam and the fact that Mike is on there.
Didn't you find the B-2 thing interesting?
Yeah, it's really good. And in fact, there were a couple other stations that have had a guy named Tony Minetti on, who was actually, I think he might have actually flown the B-2, but asked that question of, hey, how do you go to the bathroom, or can people eat? I love the idea that Bill can tout that both he and his wife at some point or another have been in charge of the maintenance of all those B-6 bombers.
And physically touched every last one of them and went over there to Iran. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and I know we're over time here, Brad, but I think Bill has latched on to a winning issue of opposing the Kansas City stadiums. Do you know the second layer behind that, Brad?
No.
If Mike Kehoe is going to come out in a few months and endorse Mike Elam for county executive, it would make sense for Bill to preemptively criticize Kehoe, don't you think?
So this is a shot across the bow for the endorsement of Mike Kehoe, then?
Hey, I don't know. I mean, I who knows, Brad?
When did you hear the interview yesterday with Mike Kehoe when he was asked about this, and he essentially said, hey, any business, and I thought his answer was good, but it was a political answer. He says, I'm for any business that's saying they're going to move. He says, and he said, I think he gave the example, if Boeing decided they're going to move to Illinois, people would go, whoa, they would say no, but let's be honest, it's because they're sports teams. That's what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know how you feel about that, Brad. Maybe we could continue that in Brad's top 3, which will be 2/3 of my stories on Thursday.
John, we're way over. Say goodbye.
See you tomorrow, Brad.